Everyone has received spam emails at one point. It's annoying, but you can try to stop it by blocking the sender or clicking the unsubscribe button, even though you never subscribed in the first place. You would think that little button was the solution to your problem. That is, until a few days later you get even more emails. Most email clients have a spam folder, which does a pretty good job of keeping those emails out of your site. But every once in a while, one of them will slip through. It's unavoidable, whether it's emails, phone calls, or text messages. Sometimes it isn't even real spam that bothers people, but the annoying and incessant messages that can actually be a result of carelessness. To explain, let's say you are visiting a website, and to see all the information, they require you to sign up for an account. It's annoying, yet people still, even if reluctant at first, give away their own personal information for free, in return for access to something that usually ends up having little to no value. No unsubscribe button can reverse this situation. As you continue to sign up for more websites and apps, you are slowly providing the information needed for companies to form an online profile for you. Everything as far as what websites you visit, when you visit them, your name, your age, your phone number, where you live, what you buy, where you go, and even people you know. All of this information is recorded and then purchased by other companies who have this network of information that they share with each other, until any form of online privacy you once had from these companies is now gone. Some common things I've heard people say in regard to this privacy are, "Why should I care about my online privacy? That's too much effort." Or, "I don't really care. Nothing bad has happened to me anyways." The biggest and most important response that needs to be addressed, however, is the common argument, "I have nothing to hide, so why should I care about my privacy?" One main problem with this statement is that it shows that the speaker equates privacy with secrecy. Under this belief, one could assume that anyone who does care about privacy is trying to hide something, either from the people around them or even the government. Under this belief, one could assume that any amount of these people who care for their own privacy are just criminals and should be avoided. This common misconception that privacy is equal to secrecy is one of several misconceptions that have gained traction over time, which paints such a picture of those in the digital world that makes several parts of it seem inherently bad. We have seen similar situations with those who know how to hack. Often, the ability to, or even general knowledge about hacking, is correlated to having personal experience with illegal activities online, including hacking. A large portion of those who know how to hack are not looking to do anything illegal, but actually learn from others who have the same interests and teach those who are less informed about their passion. Learning about the digital world comes with the discovery that everything you do publicly, and even many things you do privately, are recorded by both the government and several tech companies. When the government is brought into the picture, this is when efforts for privacy are equated with illegal activity. Both sides, those who care and those who don't care about privacy, can be at fault for this idea. If someone were to come up to me and the first thing they said regarding privacy is that they're untraceable by the government, of course I'm going to assume they have something to hide. This is a very poor way to introduce a privacy-focused lifestyle, and it is very similar to how some Christians go around telling non-believers about hell and punishment. It paints a poor picture and does a better job at scaring the other person away than it does at actually having a conversation with someone about something you're passionate about. It's very important to introduce your ideas with consideration for the other person, rather than throwing them into a world that they know nothing about while expecting them to understand and assuming that you yourself are doing something good. Privacy is not about hiding from the government and getting away with illegal activities. In response to the "I have nothing to hide" argument, Edward Snowden, a former CIA and NSA agent, states that arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying that you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. Privacy is a right that we have, just like free speech. The "I have nothing to hide" argument only works under the assumption that privacy is equal to secrecy, which is why it's so important to come to an understanding on what privacy actually is. People have been discussing this topic for many years, but it has been getting a lot more attention recently because of how far some of the biggest companies are willing to go to get as much information as possible about everyone. In 1993, Eric Hughes wrote a Cypherpunk's Manifesto, a public document focused on privacy for an open society. In this he writes, "Privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. Privacy is not secrecy. A private matter is something one doesn't want the whole world to know, but a secret matter is something one doesn't want anybody to know. Privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world." The name Cypherpunk, from the title of this document, refers to those advocating the widespread use of strong cryptography and privacy-enhancing technologies. The word cryptography, in the context of privacy, is now better described by the word encryption. Encryption is a very popular word that's been getting thrown around a lot recently in the description of online services. Many of them mention encryption as a way to show that their service is secure, but how it's encrypted isn't really talked about, and you're really just putting your trust in them sometimes. There are some email providers that offer end-to-end encryption, which means that only the sender and receiver of a message can see the content. The problem is that it only works if both parties are using the same email provider that does offer it, and there aren't many out there that do. However, it's not a big problem for the majority of people, because most email providers actually have pretty good security against hackers as long as your password isn't weak. The only time end-to-end encryption becomes necessary is when very sensitive information is being handled, especially for journalists and activists who are a huge target for threats. The best option for everyday use would be to choose an email provider that respects privacy, offers end-to-end encryption, and stores data in an encrypted format. On the topic of emails, one big mistake people make is using one email for everything. This introduces several problems that not only affect your privacy and security, but also your own convenience. You could just split everything into folders on one email, but it's easy to lose track of things when so much is being put into one account. The saying, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket," heavily applies to how you manage your emails. If you use the same account for everything you do online, then all of the information connected to that account is at risk. All it takes is one data breach and now your email is in a list with thousands of other compromised accounts. The first thing someone with bad intentions is going to do is check if any of those accounts are registered to other services. If you sign up for a bunch of random websites that aren't very important, using an email that has your name in it, then things get even worse. With someone's full name, you can find where they live, their phone number, and their family members. Most of that is information that anyone can find just by knowing a first and last name. If you add a compromised account into the mix, then all of the personal information attached to that account also becomes available. Facebook had a data breach back in 2019 that they recently claimed to have fixed back then, but they didn't even notify the users of the platform that there was a data breach, and they even said that they have no intentions of doing so. It doesn't matter if they fixed the problem that made them vulnerable to a breach, because the information of over 530 million accounts has already been leaked, and no one even knew about it. The people affected have to take action as soon as possible, but by not notifying anyone about the breach, Facebook prevented anyone from doing so. If you have a Facebook account that's attached to an email with a lot of your information tied to it, then all of that information is at risk. The best way to manage your emails would be to have separate ones for different purposes. You can make one email for more personal information like your bank account or online purchases, a second email for any entertainment services or random websites that you sign up for, and a work or school email. This will protect you from people trying to get all of your information from just a name and an email. One problem that arises with having a lot of accounts is passwords. Passwords are a constant struggle for so many people, and you've most likely been in a situation yourself where you have to take the time to change a password because you forgot it. You may fear the idea of having several accounts because of all the passwords you'll have to make, and this can usually result in the common mistake of using the same or similar password for multiple things. We all know that it's not good to do it, yet so many people still use the same password because it seems convenient. As more accounts get created with similar passwords, that's when things become the opposite of convenient. The solution to password problems is extremely simple. The first step is to find something called a password manager. This is something that will not only store your password safely, but could also generate strong passwords for you. A good password will usually consist of many randomized letters, numbers, and symbols, or a passphrase made of random words, as well as a number or two. Using passwords that you can't even remember may seem like a nightmare, but the password manager is doing the work. All you need to do when you go to log in somewhere is open the password manager, find the account you're looking for, then copy and paste the password to whatever you're logging into. Password managers usually are available as an app on your mobile device or your computer, and some can even be added as a browser extension. Before getting into browser extensions, it's important to know what browsers respect your privacy, and why what browser you use actually matters for your own browsing experience. There are a lot of different ones out there, and definitely some to avoid. Try to stay away from any random browser that isn't clear on their intentions, and instead look for something with a good reputation that respects your privacy. The most used browser is Google Chrome, and it has been for a long time. However, it's not what it once was, as their main focus now is to track everything you do online and give you personalized ads and personalized search results. It's important to know that your browser doesn't affect your search results. Your search results are actually based on something called your search engine. The browser is just the software that you are using to do your internet searches on, and most browsers also save information to give you a more customized browsing experience. Many people like to switch from Google Chrome to a different browser, but doing that alone doesn't account for the fact that Google also has their own search engine, which is the most used in the world. Google is typically set as the default search engine on every browser, and it's still generally regarded as the best search engine for certain situations. But there are ways you can change your search engine to improve your privacy, yet still be able to get Google search results when needed. The browser itself also allows you to add browser extensions, which can customize your browsing experience for better or for worse. Extensions known as ad blockers are the most common. Their job is exactly as the name implies, to block advertisements. There are a lot of different ad blockers available. To keep things simple, it would be best to find one good ad blocker and make sure to not install multiple. There are many types of extensions out there, but it's best to only install ones that you will use, as having a lot of extensions makes your fingerprint more unique. When your online activity is tracked, companies will be able to identify you based on how unique your browser is, which is called fingerprinting. The hardest part for many people is figuring out what to even switch to. I've been constantly saying to switch to alternative browsers, search engines, and email clients. But how do you know if something is safe to use, and what are your options? The first step in seeing if something is safe is to simply read what is available. Read the description of the software or product you are wanting to use and find their privacy policy. Finding software that is made by people who respect your privacy is a big deal, and the most favored upon privacy-focused applications are usually free and open source software. Open source means that the code of the software is publicly available, which means that anyone who knows how to read code can see exactly how the software works. For non-technical people, open source shows the creators transparency with their users. It ensures that they don't steal your information and shows their willingness to allow others to get involved and make improvements on the software. It also means that even if the creator no longer supports the product themselves, the base code still remains, and someone else may continue developing it or simply keep it running. Open source software is much better to trust long-term instead of having to worry about a company shutting down, resulting in you losing information. However, you shouldn't just rely on something being open source to decide whether or not it's safe. You now know what to look for, but where to start is probably still an issue. There are so many options out there, but finding software with a good reputation can be hard, since they can get drowned out with the thousands of other options that dominate the internet. Starting with email clients. It's best to stay away from Gmail for anything unless you need to use it for school or work. Almost anything connected to Google is also connected to trackers that aren't necessarily harmful, but all the information they gather is going to be used to fingerprint you. Just make sure you don't use that email for anything else. With that in mind, here are some reputable email providers and clients that focus on privacy. Protonmail is one of the best. They support end-to-end encryption, as well as self-destructing emails, which can be fun to mess with, but could be useful to some people. Although the client isn't completely open source, they're one of the most trusted email providers that are focused on privacy. Another option is Tutanota. They may not have a ton of features available for free, but it's a good and simple choice. Aside from email clients themselves, you can also use an email cloaking service, which allows you to have emails forwarded to you through an alias instead of directly giving out your real email. There are two options for this, which are AnonAddy and Simple Login. They both do the same thing, so your choice just comes down to personal preference. For password managers, one of the best options is Bitwarden. It's very easy to store your passwords, it can generate passwords and passphrases for you, it's open source, and it syncs between devices. The app is available on mobile devices, computers, as well as a browser extension, or even a simple bookmark to their page. All the information is encrypted, and it even comes with an option to check if your email is in any known data breaches. If you want something much more simplistic, then another option is KeePassXC. It stores and can also generate passwords just like Bitwarden, but syncing it between devices is not an option. For web browsers, there are a couple options depending on your device. For computers, a good option is Firefox. It's open source, just as fast as Google Chrome, respects your privacy, and you can adjust your settings to customize everything how you want it. For mobile devices, if you're using an iPhone, DuckDuckGo also has their own browser app, but the default Safari browser is also decent. Firefox is also available, but is better on Android than it is on iOS. The next step after changing your browser is to change your search engine. One of the best search engines that respects your privacy is DuckDuckGo, but it can take some time to get used to since the search results are different than Google. There are even situations where a Google search may be more helpful, and DuckDuckGo takes this into account. They have a feature called Bangs, which allows you to base your search on a certain website or even other search engines. Another option is Startpage. This search engine gives you unfiltered Google results, meaning that the results are not personalized by tracking it. Startpage's website explains this with the name Filter Bubble. It continues to explain that Google keeps a record of all of your interests based on things you write about in your Gmail account, things you search for on their search engine, and other Google services you use. They use this information to pre-select what search results they believe you are actually looking for. The result is that you do not receive pure search results, but results that have been tailored, censored, and personalized for you specifically. These are all things you can use as more private and secure alternatives to the main services out there that make money off of your information. It's still important to know that privacy is not all or nothing. It's something that can always be improved, and it also depends on you and what information you want to protect. Having the best possible privacy really isn't the most important thing in the world, and it shouldn't get in between you and your family because you refuse to send a text message thinking that the government is trying to get you. If you're concerned about privacy, then do what you can to protect it, but compromise is also very important. Even if you don't care about your privacy, bad habits online can lead to some serious issues that may even cost you. Privacy isn't about hiding from the government, breaking the law, or being paranoid. It's about having control over what information is available about you publicly, not being put into a filter bubble, and ultimately benefiting from those efforts by being organized and having good security.
Yes, this is definitely my bailiwick. So in 10 words or less, what was your takeaway from this?
Bad habits take a lot of effort to break.
That one I got. Well, since I still marvel at the number 2 pencil, and I've never sent a text or received one, I'm passing it up.
Dustin, I thought your presentation was so reasonable and just well put together and really well thought out. With great, useful information. I have so many questions, but I'll just keep it to 1 or 2. You say to look at the privacy statements of these different companies, and those pop up and I see them, and I always just click the box and keep on going because I don't want to read it. I wouldn't know what to look for if I read it. So can you give us maybe 2 or 3 things? What should I be looking for to choose a company that protects my privacy?
So a lot of companies do, like specifically a lot of Google services, they purposely make their privacy policies very long so that you don't read them.
It works, because I don't.
There's a lot of legal loopholes that they use to be able to gather your information and make money off of it.
Okay.
So usually companies that are more focused on privacy try to make their things simple and easy to understand. And they try to just make everything clear and transparent.
So what would a good one say? Like, we don't sell your information, or those kinds of key terms?
If they're focused on privacy, they'll say specifically that we do not sell your information.
Is that the big thing I'm looking for? We don't sell your information, or we don't track your
You'll see a lot. You'll see information on tracking. You'll see them mention selling your data and just how they collect your data and how they store it. I know there's some privacy-focused companies that state that they don't store your information or they get rid of it as fast as possible.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. And then one more thing. Anon, Addy, and Simple Login, you said were email what?
It's called an email cloaking service.
Cloaking, thank you. That's the word I missed. Great, thank you. Very helpful.
I'm going to pass to Ms. Moore.
That's very interesting. So did you experiment in your research to see how a person might be attacked, I guess, from too much, by a hacker or something like that? Did you set any bait out there to see what would happen?
Can you ask that again?
Okay.
Did you do any experiment?
Did you try to hack our emails?
Well, I just want to know.
That's private information.
No, I mean, did you just do straight research, just reading items and stuff?
A lot of research and actually trying out a lot of these services for myself before telling you guys about them. Like a lot of the things that I have listed, I have personally used, and I can confirm that they are pretty decent.
And in so doing, did you come across, you're like, whoa, you had to back up from that?
Yeah, there were some, specifically with password managers, there were a few that I was going to try, but then I see, oh, there was a data breach where everyone's passwords got leaked. I don't want to use them.
That was my question. Can't password manager be hacked?
If their security system is not good.
Yeah, certainly, okay. So pretty much everything could be hacked if you have the right tools.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I do have one question. So what was the scariest part
Yeah.
of this project, learning the research, doing the research?
It's just the discovery that your entire behavior can be recorded, like everything you do. Some of these companies can know you better than you know yourself. Especially and it's all for the purpose, for a lot of them, specifically Google, like a lot of the data they record is just to give you like personalized search results and advertisements, just to make money off of it. And
Yeah.
they know what you want to buy in the future,
Yeah,
if they know your browsing habits and your purchase.
it's crazy.
So what email account do you use personally?
I use multiple for certain things, since I'm keeping them separate.
Yeah.
I use Protonmail for a few things. Like I used to have a Google account, but I was able to switch a lot of those accounts over to Protonmail.
Yeah.
And then I have Gmail for school,
Uh-huh.
and that's pretty much it.
Good for you.
Thank you very much. All right.